When visiting the waitress who served him, the millionaire was paralyzed upon seeing a photo on her house wall, the same photo of his beloved who disappeared 25 years ago. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Manhattan's busy streets as William Morgan stepped out of his company's towering headquarters. At 49, he had the confident stride of a man who commanded respect in boardrooms and whose decisions affected thousands of employees worldwide. His tailored charcoal suit and silver-flecked dark hair gave him a distinguished appearance, but his eyes, deep blue with hints of gray, carried a heaviness that his business success had never managed to lighten. "Will you be needing the car again tonight, Mr. Morgan?" his driver asked, holding the door of the sleek black sedan. William checked his watch. 7:30 p.m. Another day consumed by meetings and conference calls. "No, Frank. I think I'll walk for a bit." He needed to clear his head after the merger negotiations that had dragged on for hours. "Very well, sir. Have a good evening." William nodded and started walking, with no particular destination in mind. 5 years after his divorce from Elaine, a marriage that had been more business arrangement than love match, he still felt the hollow echo of emptiness when returning to his penthouse apartment. The space was impeccably designed, with museum-quality art and panoramic views of Central Park, yet it had never felt like home. The brisk October air carried hints of approaching winter as William wandered into a neighborhood he rarely visited. Small shops and family-owned businesses lined the streets, a stark contrast to the corporate landscape he typically navigated. The warm glow from a modest restaurant caught his eye, Bella's Kitchen. Something about its unpretentious appearance and the laughter spilling from inside drew him in. The small bell above the door announced his entrance. The restaurant was simple but clean, with checkered tablecloths and the comforting aroma of home cooking. Only about half the tables were occupied, mostly by working-class families and a few couples. Just one tonight. William turned toward the voice and felt an inexplicable jolt, almost like recognition. The young waitress couldn't have been more than 25, with warm honey-brown eyes and a genuine smile. Her name tag read, Lucy. "Yes, just me," he managed to reply, suddenly aware of how out of place his expensive suit looked in this neighborhood establishment. "Right this way." She led him to a corner table. "First time at Bella's." "Is it that obvious?" William asked, finding himself smiling, something that had become rare in recent years. "Well, we don't get many Wall Street types in here," she said with no judgment in her tone, just a hint of amusement. "But everyone's welcome." She handed him a menu. "Our special tonight is my grandmother's lasagna recipe. It's worth breaking any diet for." There was something in her easy manner, her unpretentious warmth, that struck a chord in William. It reminded him of another time, another life, before spreadsheets and profit margins had consumed his existence. "I'll trust your recommendation then," he said, as she walked away. William couldn't help watching her, not with the interest of a man noticing an attractive woman, but with an odd sense of familiarity that made no logical sense. When she returned with water and bread, he found himself asking, "Have you worked here long?" "About 3 years now," Lucy answered. "It's family-owned. The owner, Bella, was my mom's best friend. She's been good to me." Something in her expression suggested there was more to that story. But she quickly brightened. "Can I get you something to drink while you wait?" Over the course of his meal, William found himself unusually talkative, sharing small details about his day. Lucy had a way of listening that made even the simplest conversation feel meaningful. When she mentioned studying accounting at night school, he felt an inexplicable pride. "That's impressive. Balancing work and school," he said sincerely. Lucy shrugged. "You do what you have to do, right? Dreams don't chase themselves." The simple wisdom in her words stayed with William, long after he'd paid his bill and left a generous tip as he stepped outside. He realized he felt lighter than he had in years. Over the next several weeks, William found himself returning to Bella's Kitchen with increasing frequency. He told himself it was the food or the unpretentious atmosphere, a refreshing change from the exclusive restaurants where he typically dined with business associates. But in truth, it was the brief conversations with Lucy that drew him back. "The regular?" she'd ask with a smile that reached her eyes, and William would nod, wondering when he'd become predictable, and why that didn't bother him. One evening after his 4th visit that month, Mrs. Jenkins, his longtime housekeeper who had been with the Morgan family since William was a child, noticed his improved mood as he arrived home. "You seem different lately, Mr. William," she observed while bringing him his evening tea, a ritual she had maintained for decades. Her weathered hands showed every one of her 75 years, but her mind remained sharp as ever. "Do I?" he asked, looking up from some contracts he was reviewing. "Yes." Her knowing eyes studied him. "You're smiling more. It reminds me of how you were before." They both knew what before meant. Before Emily, before the heartbreak, before William had thrown himself into building his empire as a way to forget. William sighed. "I've been going to this little restaurant. Nothing special." Mrs. Jenkins's expression was unreadable. "Would you happen to have a business card from this place? I might like to try it myself someday." William knew it was an excuse. Mrs. Jenkins rarely left the Upper East Side, but he handed her a takeout menu he'd brought home. "Bella's Kitchen," she read aloud. "And what brings you back there so often?" William hesitated. "There's a waitress there, Lucy. Something about her just seems familiar somehow, like I've known her before, which is impossible." Mrs. Jenkins' hand trembled slightly as she set down her teacup. "A coincidence?" "I'm sure," she said, but her voice had changed. "Do you have a picture of the staff on your phone, perhaps? From one of your visits?" Puzzled by her interest, William scrolled through his phone. "Actually, yes. The owner asked to take a photo with me last time. Some of the staff are in it too." He showed her the picture where he stood awkwardly beside the enthusiastic Bella, with Lucy and another waitress smiling in the background. Mrs. Jenkins stared at the phone for a long moment, her face paling visibly. Then, with practiced composure, she handed it back. "She seems like a nice young lady," was all she said, but William could have sworn her hands were shaking that night. Long after William had gone to bed, Mrs. Jenkins sat alone in her small quarters, looking at an old photograph she kept hidden in her Bible. Two young people smiled back at her, William at 24, and beside him, a beautiful young woman with honey-brown eyes that now, 25 years later, looked out from another face. "Oh, Emily," she whispered to the photograph. "What have I done?" A month into William's routine visits to Bella's Kitchen, he noticed Lucy wasn't at her usual station one busy Friday evening. The restaurant felt different without her warm presence. "Is Lucy off tonight?" he asked the older waitress who brought his water. "Third day this week," the woman replied with a frown. "Family emergency. Poor thing's going through a rough patch." William's fork paused midway to his mouth. "Is everything okay?" The waitress hesitated, clearly debating how much to share. "It's not my place to say, but..." She lowered her voice. "Her little girl's in the hospital again. Heart condition. Been that way since birth." The revelation hit William unexpectedly hard. "I had no idea she had a daughter. Olivia. Sweetest 6-year-old you'd ever meet." The waitress sighed. "Lucy's been working double shifts trying to save for a specialist, but with medical bills piling up." She shook her head. "Anyway, she should be back tomorrow." William barely tasted his meal that night, his mind preoccupied with this new information. He left earlier than usual, troubled by the thought of Lucy facing such hardship alone. The next evening, Lucy was indeed back, though William immediately noticed the shadows under her eyes and the strain behind her smile. "Missed you yesterday," he said, when she brought his usual order. "Had some personal stuff to handle," she replied, with practiced brightness. But William saw the weariness in the slight droop of her shoulders. "Your daughter?" he asked gently. Lucy's professional mask slipped momentarily. "Bella told you." "Actually, it was the other waitress. I hope you don't mind," she sighed, setting down the water pitcher. "No, it's fine. Olivia's doing better now. They adjusted her medication." Her fingers twisted the edge of her apron. "We'll figure it out." William hesitated, then asked, "What exactly is wrong with her heart?" "Ventricular septal defect with pulmonary hypertension," Lucy answered, the medical terminology flowing easily from someone who had repeated it countless times. "Basically, there's a hole between the heart chambers that never closed properly." She attempted a smile. "She's tough, though. Gets that from me. Is there a surgery that could help?" William found himself asking. Lucy's expression tightened. "Yes, but we're on a waiting list for financial assistance. Insurance only covers so much." She straightened, clearly uncomfortable discussing her troubles with a customer. Anyway, can I get you some more bread? William recognized the subject change for what it was, and didn't press further, but the conversation lingered with him long after he'd paid his bill. The following morning, he called his personal physician, Dr. Hartman. "I need information about pediatric heart specialists," William explained. "The best in the country for ventricular septal defects. That would be Dr. Elena Rodriguez at New York Children's Hospital," Dr. Hartman replied without hesitation. "But her waiting list is months long unless you're me," William finished. "Can you arrange a consultation? It's for the daughter of a friend." That evening, William arrived at Bella's kitchen with a plan, only to find Lucy wasn't working. Bella herself came to his table. "She called in sick," the restaurant owner explained. "Olivia had another episode last night. Lucy took her to the emergency room." William's chest tightened with concern. "Which hospital?" An hour later, he walked through the sterile corridors of Metro General's pediatric ward, feeling distinctly out of place. He found Lucy in a small waiting area, hunched over a clipboard of forms, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked up in shock when his shadow fell across her. "William, what are you doing here?" "Bella told me about Olivia," he said simply, taking the seat beside her. "I thought you might need a friend." Lucy's exhaustion-rimmed eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. Thank you, but you didn't have to come." "How is she?" "Stabilized. They want to keep her overnight for observation." Lucy rubbed her temples. "And I'm trying to figure out how to explain to my boss why I need another day off when I've already missed so many shifts this month." William cleared his throat. "Lucy, I might be able to help." Her expression immediately closed. "I don't need charity." "Not charity," he clarified quickly. "I run a family foundation that supports medical care for children. We could arrange for Olivia to see a specialist, Dr. Rodriguez at Children's Hospital. She's the best in the field." Lucy stood abruptly. "I don't even know you, not really. You show up at the restaurant for a few weeks, and now you're offering to pay for my daughter's medical care. Why would you do that?" It was a fair question, and one William couldn't fully answer even to himself. "Because I can," he said finally. "And because it matters?" Lucy studied him for a long moment. "I appreciate the thought, but we're managing. I've applied for assistance programs, and Olivia's on several waiting lists." "Which could take months," William pressed. "Look, I understand your pride, I do, but this isn't about you or me. It's about giving your daughter the best chance." Lucy's resolve visibly wavered. But before she could respond, a nurse appeared. "Ms. Parker, Olivia's asking for you." William watched Lucy hurry after the nurse, then pulled out his phone. "Mrs. Jenkins, I need your advice." The next morning, Mrs. Jenkins set a cup of coffee before William at the breakfast table. "You want to help this young woman? But she's refusing. She doesn't trust my motives," William said, "and I can't blame her. It must seem strange." Mrs. Jenkins was quiet for a moment. "Perhaps a more indirect approach," she suggested carefully. "Offer her employment at your foundation, a position that comes with comprehensive health benefits." William looked up. "That's brilliant. She's studying accounting. We always need financial staff." "Just be careful, William," Mrs. Jenkins warned, her eyes troubled. "Getting involved in this young woman's life. There may be complications you haven't considered." William was too focused on his plan to notice her concern. "I'll visit her at home this afternoon. Bella gave me her address." Mrs. Jenkins stiffened. "Her home, William. That seems rather forward." "It's a professional courtesy," he insisted. "I'm offering her a job, not a date." That afternoon, William's driver dropped him in a modest neighborhood far from his usual haunts. Lucy's apartment building was clean but weathered, with children's bikes chained to the stairwell railing. He checked the address again before climbing to the third floor. Lucy answered his knock with surprise, dressed in worn jeans and a faded t-shirt. "William, how did you—" "Bella gave me your address," he explained quickly. "I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. May I come in?" She hesitated before stepping aside. "It's not much, but it's home." The apartment was small but meticulously kept. Colorful children's drawings decorated the refrigerator, and textbooks were stacked neatly on a small desk in the corner. It had the unmistakable warmth of a real home, something William's expensive penthouse lacked. "Olivia's napping," Lucy explained softly, gesturing toward a closed door. "The medication makes her tired." William nodded. then got straight to the point. "I have a proposition for you. A job at the Morgan Family Foundation. We need someone with accounting background to help manage our healthcare initiatives. The position comes with full benefits that would cover Olivia's medical needs." Lucy's eyes narrowed. "Is this a real job, or are you creating one out of pity?" "It's real," William assured her. "You'd report to our finance director, not to me. Your classes wouldn't be a problem. We can work around your schedule." Before Lucy could respond, a small voice called from the other room. "Mommy, who are you talking to?" "Coming, sweetie," Lucy called back, then turned to William. "I need to think about this." "Of course." William handed her his business card. "Take all the time you need." As Lucy went to check on her daughter, William's gaze wandered around the living room. A collection of framed photographs on the wall caught his attention. Lucy as a teenager with an older woman, Olivia as a baby, and then his heart stopped. In a silver frame hung a portrait of a young woman with honey-brown eyes and a gentle smile. Eyes he had once looked into every day. A smile he had once kissed goodbye, never knowing it would be the last time. William's legs felt suddenly unsteady as he stepped closer. The woman in the photograph was unmistakably Emily. His Emily, who had vanished 25 years ago without a trace. "That's my mom," Lucy said, returning to the room. "Well, my adoptive mom, Mary Emily Parker. She passed away 3 years ago." William's hand trembled as he touched the frame. "Emily," he whispered, the name catching in his throat. "Did you know her?" Lucy asked, surprised. William turned to face her, seeing Emily's eyes looking back at him from Lucy's face. I think I might have, a long time ago." William barely remembered leaving Lucy's apartment. His mind was a storm of questions and impossible coincidences as his driver navigated back to Manhattan. "Are you feeling well, sir?" the driver asked, catching William's pale reflection in the rearview mirror. "Just take me home, James," William managed to say, his voice uncharacteristically strained. The photograph of Emily, her face exactly as he remembered it, had shaken him to his core, and Lucy, with those same expressive eyes, the timing aligned perfectly. Lucy was 25. Emily had disappeared 25 years ago, pregnant with their child, a fact only William and Emily had known. Their plan had been to elope that weekend, to escape the crushing expectations of William's family, but Emily never showed at their meeting place. She'd vanished, leaving William devastated and confused. The police investigation turned up nothing. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist, back in his penthouse. William poured himself a scotch with trembling hands. Mrs. Jenkins appeared in the doorway, her normally composed face creased with concern. "William, what's happened?" "I saw her, Mrs. Jenkins," he said, his voice hollow. "Emily, a photograph in Lucy's apartment. She was Lucy's adoptive mother." Mrs. Jenkins gripped the doorframe, her knuckles whitening. "That's quite a coincidence." "Is it?" William swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "Lucy is exactly the right age. She has Emily's eyes, her expressions." He looked up sharply. "You saw her picture. You knew, didn't you?" The elderly woman's silence was confirmation enough. "Why didn't you say something?" William demanded. "I wasn't certain," Mrs. Jenkins replied carefully. "And after all these years, I didn't want to resurrect painful memories without being sure." William ran a hand through his hair. "I need answers. If Lucy is Emily's daughter, our daughter, then what happened to Emily? Why did she disappear? Why give up our child?" "Perhaps those questions are best answered by professionals," Mrs. Jenkins suggested gently. "You have the resources to find the truth, William." The next morning, William called David Chen, a discreet private investigator he'd used for sensitive corporate matters. "I need you to look into someone's past," William explained, providing Lucy's information and what little he knew about her adoptive mother. "And I need absolute discretion. This is personal, not business." "I understand, Mr. Morgan," Chen replied. "I'll begin immediately," while waiting for Chen's investigation. William threw himself into arranging Lucy's new position at the foundation. He created a legitimate role that suited her skills and ensured Olivia would receive the best medical care possible. True to her word, Lucy had taken time to consider his offer. A week after his visit to her apartment, she called the number on his business card. "I'd like to accept the job," she said, her voice a mix of pride and reluctant gratitude. "But I want to be clear that I expect to earn my place. No special treatment. I wouldn't have it any other way," William assured her, ignoring the irony that her very hiring was special treatment, though not for the reasons she might suspect. Within days, William had arranged for Olivia to see Dr. Rodriguez at Children's Hospital. He kept his distance during Lucy's first weeks at the foundation, allowing her to settle into her new role without feeling his watchful eyes. But he couldn't help requesting updates from her supervisor, or occasionally glimpsing her through his office windows as she worked diligently at her desk. "She's picking up the financial systems remarkably quickly," the foundation's finance director reported. "If she continues this trajectory, she'll be an asset to the team." William wasn't surprised. If Lucy was indeed his daughter, she had inherited his aptitude for numbers along with her mother's eyes. 3 weeks into Chen's investigation, William's secure phone line rang. "I have preliminary findings, Mr. Morgan," the investigator said. "Some quite interesting. Can we meet?" An hour later, Chen spread a folder of documents across William's home office desk. Lucy Parker was indeed adopted, though the records were sealed, Chen explained. Her adoptive mother, Mary Emily Parker, received her as an infant from what hospital records describe as a young woman in distress. "The timing matches your timeline perfectly." William's throat tightened. "And Mary Emily Parker? What about her connection to Emily Roberts?" He spoke the name of his lost love aloud for the first time in years. Chen hesitated. "That's where things get complicated. I've found no record of an Emily Roberts becoming Mary Emily Parker. The birth certificate, driver's license, social security. They all originate as Mary Parker, however." He slid forward a document. "I did find this newspaper clipping from shortly after your Emily disappeared." The yellowed paper showed a brief article about a Jane Doe, approximately 20 years old, found unconscious after an apparent fall. She had been admitted to a small hospital in New Jersey with no identification. "You think this could be Emily?" William asked, studying the grainy image. "The timing and description match," Chen confirmed. "And this hospital is in the same town where Mary Parker first appears in official records." William sat back, processing the implications. So Emily might have been injured, lost her memory or identity somehow, and became Mary Parker. "It's a working theory," Chen nodded. "I'll continue digging. There's something else you should know." He passed another folder across the desk. "I ran a background check on your current family members as standard procedure. Your half-brother, Andrew, has been making some unusual financial moves recently." William frowned. "Andrew? What does he have to do with this?" "Probably nothing," Chen admitted. "But he's been liquidating assets and transferring funds offshore. And there's this." He showed William a surveillance photo of Andrew leaving William's office building late at night. "When William wasn't present, he accessed your private office last week. Security logs show he used his family access code." William and Andrew had never been close. Their 15-year age gap and different mothers had created a natural distance, and Andrew had always seemed resentful of William's position as heir to the Morgan empire. Still, corporate espionage seemed extreme, even for Andrew. "Keep an eye on him," William instructed, "but focus on finding Emily, if she's still alive." The possibility that Emily might still be out there somewhere, perhaps with no memory of their love, was both heartbreaking and hopeful that evening. William found himself lost in memories, reaching into his safe for a small velvet box he hadn't opened in decades. Inside was the engagement ring he'd never had the chance to give Emily, a simple diamond that had belonged to his grandmother. A soft knock interrupted his reverie. Mrs. Jenkins entered with his evening tea. "Your father called again," she reminded him. "He's asking when you'll visit." William's jaw tightened. Richard Morgan, once a titan of industry, had been reduced by a stroke to a shadow of his former self. He now resided in the family's Long Island estate, cared for by a team of nurses. "I'll go tomorrow," William said reluctantly. Mrs. Jenkins set down the tea tray. "Will you ask him?" William knew what she meant. Had his father played a role in Emily's disappearance? Richard Morgan had never approved of William's relationship with Emily. The daughter of the family's former housekeeper, he had made no secret of his disdain for what he called William's youthful indiscretion. "Yes," William replied grimly. "It's time for some honesty in this family." As Mrs. Jenkins turned to leave, William asked quietly, "Did you ever suspect that Lucy might be my daughter?" The elderly woman paused at the door, her back to him. There were similarities I couldn't ignore, but without proof. I didn't want to give you false hope, or false pain, William added. After she left, William stood at his window overlooking the city, wondering if Olivia, the little girl fighting for her life, might actually be his granddaughter. The thought filled him with a fierce protectiveness he'd never experienced before. His phone buzzed with a text from Lucy. Olivia's surgery is scheduled for next week. Dr. Rodriguez is optimistic. I don't know how to thank you. William smiled sadly at the message. How could he explain that he wasn't being generous? He was simply trying to protect what might be his own flesh and blood. The Morgan family estate on Long Island stood as a monument to old money and power. Its sprawling grounds and colonial architecture had once impressed William. Now, as his car crunched up the gravel driveway, the mansion only felt like a prison where too many secrets had been locked away. Mr. William, the head nurse greeted him at the door with practiced cheerfulness. Your father's having a good day. He's in the sunroom. William nodded, steeling himself for the conversation ahead. He found Richard Morgan seated by the large windows overlooking the manicured gardens, a plaid blanket draped across his legs despite the room's warmth. At 78, with his right side partially paralyzed from the stroke, the once intimidating patriarch appeared diminished. Yet his eyes remained sharp, calculating. So you finally remembered your old man exists, Richard said, his speech slightly slurred but his sarcasm intact. Hello, Father. William took a seat opposite him. How are you feeling? Trapped in a useless body while vultures circle, waiting for me to die. Richard gestured with his good hand toward a stack of business magazines on the side table. I read about your latest acquisition. Smart move. William wasn't interested in discussing business. I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Richard's eyes narrowed. Sounds ominous. Emily Roberts. William watched his father's face carefully. What do you know about her disappearance 25 years ago? The change was subtle but unmistakable. A tightening around Richard's mouth. A flicker of something in his eyes before his expression hardened. Ancient history. The girl ran off. Couldn't handle the pressure of being with a Morgan. Why bring this up now? Because I believe she had my child before she vanished, William said bluntly. A daughter who's now 25 years old. Richard's hand gripped the armrest of his wheelchair. Ridiculous, you're chasing ghosts. Am I? William leaned forward. Did you have something to do with Emily's disappearance, Father? Did you pay her off? Threaten her, or worse? How dare you? Richard's face flushed dangerously. I gave you everything. Position, opportunity, legacy. And this is how you repay me, with accusations. Just answer the question, William pressed. Richard's eyes blazed with anger. I did what any father would do. I protected you from a gold-digging nobody who would have derailed your entire future. He stabbed a finger toward William. And I was right. Look at what you've accomplished without her dragging you down. The confirmation hit William like a physical blow. What exactly did you do? Richard looked away. I simply made her understand that staying would ruin both your lives. The choice to leave was hers. William knew his father well enough to sense the half-truth. And the baby? Did you know about the baby? A nurse appeared at the doorway. Mr. Morgan, it's time for your medication. We're not finished, William said firmly. Yes, we are. Richard's voice was cold. Nurse, please show my son out. I'm feeling tired. William stood, frustration coursing through him. This conversation isn't over, Father. As he turned to leave, Richard called after him in a voice suddenly thick with emotion. William, whatever you think you found, let it go. Some doors are better left closed. The warning only strengthened William's resolve to uncover the whole truth. Back in Manhattan, William threw himself into preparations for Olivia's surgery, personally ensuring that Dr. Rodriguez had everything she needed. The operation would repair the hole in Olivia's heart, a complex procedure with significant risks, but one that offered the best chance for a normal life. The night before the surgery, William received an unexpected visitor at his penthouse. Mrs. Jenkins announced her, looking troubled. Miss Parker is here to see you. Sir, Lucy stood in his foyer, appearing smaller and more vulnerable than she did at the foundation office. Her usual confident demeanor had been replaced by the raw fear of a mother facing her child's mortality. I'm sorry to come unannounced, she began. But tomorrow is Olivia's surgery, and Her voice broke. "I needed to thank you properly for everything. Please sit down." William guided her to the living room. "Can I get you anything? Tea? Something stronger?" Lucy shook her head. "Dr. Rodriguez explained the procedure again today. She says Olivia's chances are good, but there are always risks with heart surgery." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I'm terrified." William fought the urge to comfort her as a father would. Instead, he maintained a respectful distance. "Dr. Rodriguez is the best, and Olivia is strong, like her mother." Lucy smiled weakly. "That's what my mom used to say about me." Her eyes drifted to a photograph on William's bookshelf, a younger William shaking hands with a former president. "You know, when you said you might have known my mom, I didn't get a chance to ask how." William chose his words carefully. "It would have been many years ago, before she became Mary Parker." "Before?" Lucy looked puzzled. "I don't understand." "It's complicated," William hedged. "And maybe not the best conversation for tonight. You need to focus on Olivia." Lucy studied him with those eyes so like Emily's. "There's something you're not telling me." Before William could respond, his secure line rang. "Excuse me, I should take this." He stepped into his office, grateful for the interruption. "Mr. Morgan, it's Chen. I have critical information that can't wait." William closed the door. "Go ahead." "I've confirmed that Mary Emily Parker was indeed your Emily Roberts," Chen reported. "Hospital records show she was admitted with a severe concussion and temporary amnesia in June 2000, exactly when Emily disappeared. But here's what's concerning. Her medical file contains notes about suspicious circumstances. The doctor suspected her injuries weren't consistent with an accidental fall." William's blood ran cold. "You're saying someone hurt her deliberately?" "It appears so. And there's more. I've been tracking your brother's movements and financial transactions 25 years ago, when he was just 17. He withdrew a significant amount of cash from his trust fund, an amount that required your father's co-signature. The withdrawal happened the day before Emily disappeared. Andrew was involved." William struggled to process this new information. "I don't have definitive proof yet," Chen cautioned, "but I'm still investigating. One more thing. Andrew has been making regular trips to a small coastal town in California for years. I'm working to identify who he's visiting there." After ending the call, William returned to the living room to find Lucy standing by the window, gazing out at the city lights. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Work matters," he lied. "Lucy, I'll be at the hospital tomorrow for Olivia's surgery. Whatever happens, you're not alone in this." She looked at him with confusion. "That's very kind, but why? Why have you taken such an interest in us? The truth, please." William wanted desperately to tell her everything, but without concrete proof, would she even believe him? And with Olivia's surgery looming, was now the right time to upend Lucy's understanding of her own identity. "Sometimes people come into our lives when we need them most," he said instead. "Let's focus on getting Olivia through tomorrow. There will be time for other conversations later." After Lucy left, William called Mrs. Jenkins into his office. "I need to know everything," he demanded. "About Emily, about Lucy. No more half-truths or protection. What exactly happened 25 years ago?" Mrs. Jenkins sank into a chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. "I've carried this burden for so long," she whispered. "I was there when Lucy was born." William stared at her in shock. "You what?" "Emily came to me when she discovered she was pregnant," Mrs. Jenkins explained, eyes distant with memory. "She was terrified of what your father might do. Richard had already threatened her, told her she would ruin your life if she stayed. Why didn't she come to me?" William asked, the old pain resurfacing. "She tried." Mrs. Jenkins looked up, tears in her eyes. "The night she disappeared, she was coming to meet you, to tell you everything, but she never made it." "What happened to her?" Mrs. Jenkins shook her head. "I don't know all the details. She managed to contact me weeks later. After the baby was born, she was different, confused, frightened. She said she needed to protect her child from the Morgans. She asked me to help find a safe home for the baby. And you agreed." William's voice rose in disbelief. "Without telling me. I made a promise," Mrs. Jenkins said softly. "Emily made me swear never to tell anyone, especially you. She believed it was the only way to keep her child safe." "Safe from what? From whom?" William demanded. Mrs. Jenkins looked away. From your father. From the Morgan name and... She hesitated. From Andrew. Andrew. William's voice was barely audible. What did my brother have to do with Emily? Mrs. Jenkins twisted her weathered hands in her lap. He was obsessed with her. I would catch him watching her when she worked here, following her around the house. I thought it was just a teenage crush. William paced the room, connecting pieces of a puzzle hidden for decades. You're saying Andrew might have harmed Emily, his own brother's girlfriend. I don't know exactly what happened, Mrs. Jenkins admitted, but after Emily disappeared, I overheard arguments between Andrew and your father, angry whispers about going too far and fixing problems. When Emily contacted me weeks later, she was changed, frightened in a way I'd never seen before. William's phone buzzed. A text from Chen. Call immediately. Found Catherine Wilson in coastal California. Records confirm she is Emily Roberts. William's heart stuttered. She's alive, he whispered. Who's alive? Mrs. Jenkins asked. Emily. She's living in California under the name Catherine Wilson. William grabbed his keys. I need to go to her. Mrs. Jenkins caught his arm. William, wait. Tomorrow is Olivia's surgery. Lucy needs you here. The reminder stopped him cold. Emily had been lost to him for 25 years. She could wait one more day. But Olivia, his possible granddaughter, was facing life-threatening surgery in mere hours. You're right, he conceded. First Olivia, then Emily. Children's Hospital was a marvel of modern medicine, its colorful corridors designed to comfort frightened children and anxious parents. William arrived at 6 a.m., well before Lucy was scheduled to bring Olivia for pre-op preparations. Dr. Rodriguez met him in her office. Mr. Morgan, I was just reviewing Olivia's case again. We're fully prepared. She studied him curiously. Your personal interest in this patient is quite remarkable. Just ensure she receives the best care possible, William replied, avoiding a direct explanation. Of course, she smiled professionally. The Foundation's support is greatly appreciated. William waited in the surgical wing's family lounge. At 7:30, Lucy arrived with Olivia, who clutched a worn teddy bear. Despite the gravity of the situation, the little girl smiled bravely at the nurses who greeted her. Lucy spotted William and approached, surprise evident on her face. You're here already. I wanted to make sure everything was in order, he explained, then knelt to Olivia's level. Hello, Olivia. That's a fine bear you have there. This is Mr. Fuzzy, Olivia said solemnly. He's having heart surgery too, so I won't be alone. William felt an unexpected lump in his throat. That's very smart planning. A nurse appeared to take Olivia for preparation. Lucy hugged her daughter tightly, whispering encouragements before releasing her to the nurse's care. She'll be in good hands, the nurse assured them. The anesthesiologist will come speak with you soon. Once Olivia was out of earshot, Lucy's composure cracked. I'm terrified, she admitted. She's going to be fine, William said with conviction he didn't entirely feel. He guided Lucy to a seat in the waiting area. Dr. Rodriguez is brilliant, and Olivia is stronger than she knows. The next hours passed in agonizing slowness. Lucy alternated between nervous pacing and anxious silence. William remained steady beside her, a rock in the storm. When Dr. Rodriguez finally appeared in surgical scrubs, both jumped to their feet. The surgery was successful, she announced with a tired smile. We've repaired the ventricular septal defect completely. Olivia is in recovery now and doing well. Lucy collapsed into tears of relief. Without thinking, William put an arm around her shoulders, comforting her as a father might. She didn't pull away. When can I see her? Lucy asked, wiping her eyes. She'll be in intensive care for monitoring. You can visit in about an hour, once she's stabilized, Dr. Rodriguez explained. She'll need to stay here for at least a week, but her prognosis is excellent. After the doctor left, Lucy turned to William. I don't know how to thank you without your help. No thanks necessary, William assured her. Go be with your daughter. I'll check in tomorrow. As Lucy headed toward the ICU, William's phone rang. It was Chen again. Mr. Morgan, we have a situation. Your brother has booked a flight to California this afternoon. He appears to be in a hurry, liquidating more assets this morning. William frowned. He's going to Emily. It appears so. And there's more. I've obtained security footage from your office building from the night Andrew visited. He was accessing your private files, specifically information about your foundation's new hires. A chill ran through William. He knows about Lucy. It seems likely. Should I intervene? William considered his options. No. Book me on the next flight to California. Text me the address where Emily is living. I need to reach her before Andrew does. After ending the call, William headed to his car, instructing his driver to take him directly to his penthouse to pack. His phone buzzed again. A text from Lucy with a photo of Olivia in recovery, looking small but peaceful among the monitors and tubes. She's asking for her grandpa, Lucy had written, followed by, sorry, she's still groggy from anesthesia and confused, but she'd love to see you tomorrow. Grandpa. The word struck William like a physical blow. He had to find Emily, had to confirm what he now believed with increasing certainty, that Lucy was their daughter and Olivia their granddaughter. At his penthouse, William packed quickly, his mind racing with questions. Why had Emily stayed away all these years? What had happened to her? And most troublingly, what was Andrew's role in all this? Mrs. Jenkins appeared in his doorway. You're leaving, what about Olivia? She's out of surgery and doing well, William explained, zipping his bag closed. But I need to find Emily before Andrew does. Chen confirmed she's living in California as Catherine Wilson. William, be careful, Mrs. Jenkins warned. If Andrew was involved in what happened to Emily 25 years ago, he could be dangerous. I'll handle Andrew, William said grimly. But I need you to do something for me while I'm gone. Keep an eye on Lucy and Olivia. Don't tell them anything yet, but protect them. On the way to the airport, William received another update from Chen. The private investigator had uncovered hospital records proving that Emily had suffered traumatic memory loss after her accident 25 years ago. According to the psychologist's notes, Chen reported, she had partial memory recovery, but was manipulated by someone who fed her false information about her past, specifically that you had rejected both her and your unborn child in exchange for your position in the family company. And she believed that, William asked. Incredulous. She was vulnerable, confused, and had suffered significant trauma, Chen explained. The notes suggest she was heavily influenced by someone who visited her regularly during recovery, someone the hospital staff assumed was family. Andrew, William said, the pieces falling into place. He manipulated her when she was vulnerable. It appears so. And Mr. Morgan, there's one more thing. I found evidence that Andrew has been visiting Catherine Wilson in California approximately every 6 months for the past 24 years. He presents himself as her friend and confidant. The depth of the deception staggered William. His own brother had stolen his life, his love, his child, his future, and maintained the lie for over 2 decades. At the airport, William headed straight for the private aviation terminal. His family's jet was being prepared for immediate departure. As he approached the plane, his phone rang. An unknown number. Mr. Morgan, came the urgent voice of his driver. There's been an accident. The car you sent for servicing this morning. The brakes failed completely during the test drive. The mechanic says they were deliberately cut. William froze on the tarmac. The implications clear. The car had been meant for his trip to the airport. Someone had wanted to ensure he never reached Emily. Mr. Morgan, are you there? Yes, William replied, his voice steady despite the realization that his own brother had just tried to kill him. Thank you for letting me know. I'll handle it from here. As the jet prepared for takeoff, William gazed out the window at the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere in California, Emily was living a life built on lies, and if Andrew reached her first, those lies might be reinforced. Or worse, Emily might disappear again, this time forever. The call came at 3:47 a.m., jolting Lucy from her uncomfortable doze in the IQ waiting room chair. William's jet had just reached cruising altitude over the Midwest when his pilot received the emergency message. Mr. Morgan has been in a serious car accident. His vehicle went off Road 27 near Westchester. He's been airlifted to Manhattan Memorial. Lucy's world tilted as she listened to Mrs. Jenkins's shaking voice on the other end of the line. The older woman had called her directly, breaking protocol and propriety in a moment of crisis. How bad is it? Lucy asked, stepping away from Olivia's room where her daughter finally slept peacefully after surgery. The doctors won't tell me much. I'm not family, Mrs. Jenkins replied, her normally composed voice cracking. But it's serious. He's in surgery now. Something about the brakes failing on a dangerous curve. What about his family? His brother? Andrew is unreachable, Mrs. Jenkins said with strange emphasis. And Richard is too frail to leave his estate. Lucy felt an unexpected surge of protectiveness toward William. He had been there for her and Olivia when they needed help most. Now he was alone when he needed someone. I'll come, she decided suddenly. Olivia is stable, and my friend Bella can sit with her for a few hours. Lucy, you don't have to. I want to, she interrupted firmly. He wouldn't be in that car if he hadn't been coming to check on Olivia after her surgery. I owe him that much. Manhattan Memorial's private wing was a stark contrast to Children's Hospital. All hushed voices, muted colors, and discreet security. Lucy felt out of place in her wrinkled clothes as she approached the nurse's station. I'm here for William Morgan, she announced, summoning confidence she didn't feel. The nurse gave her a practiced, professional once-over. Are you family? I'm a colleague. From his foundation, Lucy explained. His housekeeper called me. I'm sorry, but Mr. Morgan is in recovery after surgery. Only family is permitted at this time. Before Lucy could argue, Mrs. Jenkins appeared from the waiting room. Lucy, thank goodness you're here, she turned to the nurse. This young woman has Mr. Morgan's medical power of attorney for emergency situations. Lucy blinked in surprise, but managed not to contradict the obvious lie. The nurse frowned, but relented. Very well. He's still unconscious after surgery, but you can see him briefly. Room 712. As they walked toward William's room, Lucy whispered, Power of attorney, really? A necessary fiction, Mrs. Jenkins replied unapologetically. William would want you here, trust me. William looked shockingly vulnerable among the monitors and IV lines, his normally commanding presence diminished by the hospital gown and bandages. A nasty gash ran along his temple, and his right arm was heavily bandaged. The doctors say he's stable, Mrs. Jenkins explained quietly. The surgery repaired internal bleeding. They're keeping him sedated for now to help with recovery. Lucy took the seat beside his bed, strangely moved by seeing this powerful man so helpless. What was he doing on that road? I thought he'd be visiting Olivia today. Mrs. Jenkins hesitated. He had urgent business to attend to, but he planned to return quickly. What kind of business could be so urgent right after Olivia's surgery? Lucy pressed, sensing the evasion before Mrs. Jenkins could respond. A doctor entered to check William's vitals. Good signs, he reported. The sedation should wear off in the next few hours. He's lucky. The car rolled multiple times. It could have been much worse. After the doctor left, Mrs. Jenkins's phone rang. She stepped outside to take the call, leaving Lucy alone with the unconscious William. You know, it's weird, Lucy said softly to his still form. A few months ago, you were just some suit who wandered into Bella's restaurant. Now you've changed our lives completely. She adjusted his blanket absently. Olivia asked for you after her surgery. Called you Grandpa? Isn't that funny? The steady beep of the heart monitor was her only response. Lucy sighed, glancing at her watch. She needed to get back to Olivia soon but didn't want to leave William alone. She noticed his suit jacket draped over a chair in the corner, retrieved from the accident by the emergency responders. On impulse, she checked the pockets, looking for his phone to ensure important contacts had been notified. Instead, she found a folded sheaf of papers, printouts of emails between William and someone named David Chen. Curiosity overrode her sense of propriety as she scanned the contents, her eyes widening with each paragraph. Investigation details, DNA comparisons, photos of a woman who looked remarkably like her mother, but living in California under a different name, and most shocking of all, records suggesting that Lucy herself might be William's biological daughter. What the hell? She whispered, hands trembling as she continued reading. The documents painted an incredible story. William's long-lost love, Emily Roberts, who mysteriously disappeared 25 years ago while pregnant. The baby, Lucy, given up for adoption, and raised by Emily herself under a new identity. William's brother Andrew implicated in both Emily's disappearance and, potentially, William's accident. Lucy sat heavily in the chair, her mind reeling. If these documents were accurate, the man lying unconscious before her wasn't just her benefactor. He was her father, And her mother hadn't been Mary Emily Parker at all, but Emily Roberts, hiding from what or whom? The door opened as Mrs. Jenkins returned. She froze when she saw the papers in Lucy's hands, her face draining of color. "You shouldn't have seen those," she said quietly. "Is it true?" Lucy demanded, rising to her feet. "Is William Morgan my biological father? Is my mother still alive?" Mrs. Jenkins closed the door carefully before answering yes to both questions. Lucy felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath her. "Why didn't he tell me?" "He wanted proof first," Mrs. Jenkins explained gently. "And then Olivia's surgery took priority. He was on his way to California to find your mother when this happened." She gestured to William's unconscious form. "My mother," Lucy tested the words. "You're saying the woman who raised me, who I watched die 3 years ago, wasn't really my mother?" "She was and she wasn't," Mrs. Jenkins said cryptically. "It's complicated." "Uncomplicated," Lucy snapped. "Now," Mrs. Jenkins sank into a chair, "your mother was Emily Roberts. She worked for the Morgan family when she fell in love with William. They planned to run away together, but she disappeared. Months later, she contacted me, confused, frightened, with partial memory loss from an accident. She'd given birth to you and believed William had rejected you both. She created a new identity as Mary Parker and raised you herself, always looking over her shoulder, afraid the Morgans would find you." "But that's insane," Lucy protested. "Why would she think William rejected us? And why would the Morgans be looking for us?" "Because that's what she was told by the person who orchestrated the entire deception, Andrew Morgan, William's half-brother." Mrs. Jenkins's voice hardened. "He was obsessively in love with Emily, and when he discovered she was pregnant with William's child, he manipulated his father's disapproval into something far more sinister." Lucy struggled to process the revelation. "And you knew all this time. I helped Emily place you with a safe family. I didn't know she would become that family herself. After that, I lost contact for years." Mrs. Jenkins looked at William's still form. "When I saw your picture, when William started talking about you, I engineered your meeting at the restaurant. I hoped that somehow the truth would emerge naturally." Lucy paced the small room. "This is crazy. I need proof." "The proof is in those papers," Mrs. Jenkins replied. "And in California, where your mother lives now as Catherine Wilson, that's where William was headed, to find her before Andrew could interfere again." Lucy's phone buzzed. A text from Bella at Children's Hospital. "Olivia asking for you. Doing well but wants her mom." Reality crashed back. Her daughter needed her, regardless of these shocking revelations about her own parentage. "I have to get back to Olivia," Lucy said, gathering the papers. "But this conversation isn't over." As she reached the door, she turned back to Mrs. Jenkins. "Why was Andrew visiting my mother in California?" "The report said he's been seeing her for years. To maintain his control," Mrs. Jenkins replied grimly. "To ensure she never remembered the truth. And I fear now that William has discovered everything. Andrew has become desperate. That accident was no accident, Lucy. You need to be careful." Lucy clutched the documents tighter. "I'll be back tomorrow, and when William wakes up, I want the whole truth. From him." Lucy spent the night at Olivia's bedside, her mind churning with revelations that threatened to upend her entire identity. By morning, her exhaustion was matched only by her determination to uncover the truth. When Bella arrived to relieve her for a few hours, Lucy made her decision. "I need to go somewhere," she told her friend. "It's important. Life-changing important." Bella studied her face. "Does this have something to do with why you rushed to Manhattan Memorial last night?" "It has to do with everything," Lucy answered. "My past, Olivia's future, things I can't even explain yet." "Go," Bella nodded. "Olivia and I will have a Disney marathon. Just promise you'll be careful." With a last kiss on her sleeping daughter's forehead, Lucy left with William's documents tucked securely in her bag. In the hospital corridor, she pulled out her phone and made a call to the Foundation's travel department. "This is Lucy Parker. I need to book a flight to Santa Cruz, California today. It's an emergency related to William Morgan's accident." Using William's name opened doors she'd never had access to before. Within an hour, she was on a private charter flight headed west, courtesy of the Morgan Family Foundation. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was using resources from a family she'd just discovered might be her own. During the flight, Lucy studied the investigators' files more carefully. Catherine Wilson, the woman who might be her biological mother, taught elementary school in a small coastal community outside Santa Cruz. She lived alone in a modest house overlooking the ocean. According to surveillance photos, she looked remarkably like the woman Lucy had known as Mary Parker, just older and with different hair. The most disturbing documents detailed Andrew Morgan's regular visits to Catherine Chunter Emily over the years. Phone records showed he called her weekly. Bank statements revealed he provided her with supplemental income, disguised as investment returns. It painted a picture not of romantic involvement, but of control, ensuring she remained isolated and dependent. When the plane touched down in California, Lucy rented a car and drove straight to the address from the file. The coastal highway wound through stands of redwoods before opening to breathtaking ocean views. Under different circumstances, Lucy might have appreciated the beauty. Today, she barely noticed. Catherine Wilson's house was a small blue cottage perched on a bluff. With a garden of native plants and a wooden deck facing the Pacific, Lucy sat in her rental car for several minutes, gathering courage. What would she say? "Hi, I might be your daughter that you gave birth to but don't remember because of amnesia." Finally, she approached the front door and knocked. The woman who answered was in her late 40s, with honey brown eyes identical to Lucy's own. Her hair was lighter than in the photos of Mary Parker, cut in a chin-length bob instead of the longer style Lucy remembered. But the resemblance was unmistakable, especially around the eyes and mouth. Those eyes widened now in surprise. "Can I help you?" Lucy's carefully prepared speech evaporated. "My name is Lucy Parker," she managed. I think you might be my mother. My biological mother." The woman's hand flew to her throat. "I don't understand. There must be some mistake. Is your name Catherine Wilson? Before that, were you Mary Emily Parker? And before that, Emily Roberts?" The color drained from Catherine Emily's face. "Who sent you? Was it Andrew?" "No." Lucy took a deep breath. "It was William Morgan's investigation that led me here." "William?" The name emerged as a whisper, heavy with emotion. "He's looking for me after all this time. May I come in? It's a long story and I think we both need to hear it." Wordlessly, the woman stepped aside to let Lucy enter. The cottage's interior was warm and inviting, filled with books and simple, elegant furnishings. Photographs lined the mantel, many showing Catherine with young children, presumably her students. None showed Lucy or Olivia. "I don't understand," Catherine said again, gesturing for Lucy to sit. "I don't have a daughter. I would remember that." "Would you?" Lucy asked gently. "If you had traumatic memory loss from an accident." Catherine's hands trembled as she took the chair opposite Lucy. "Who told you about that?" "It's in these files." Lucy removed the documents from her bag. 25 years ago, you were Emily Roberts. You worked for the Morgan family and fell in love with William. You were pregnant with his child when you disappeared, after an accident that caused partial amnesia. You believed William had rejected you and your baby. Catherine shook her head, but uncertainty clouded her features. "That's not... Andrew told me William chose his inheritance over me, that Richard Morgan threatened to disown him if he didn't break things off. And you believed Andrew. He was there for me when I had no one else," Catherine defended. "When I woke up in that hospital, confused and alone, Andrew was the only person who came for me, because he engineered the whole thing," Lucy pressed. "He was obsessed with you. He manipulated his father's disapproval into something far more sinister." Catherine rose abruptly and went to a cabinet, retrieving a photo album. "These are from after my accident, if what you're saying is true. Where are the pictures of my pregnancy, of you as a baby?" "I don't know," Lucy admitted, "but I do know the timing matches perfectly. I'm 25. You disappeared 25 years ago, pregnant with William's child." A car door slammed outside. Interrupting their conversation, Catherine glanced out the window and paled. "It's Andrew. You need to hide now." "I'm not hiding," Lucy replied firmly, standing her ground. "I came for the truth." Before Catherine could argue further, the front door opened. Andrew Morgan strode in without knocking, his expensive suit and confident demeanor marking him clearly as William's brother, despite their limited physical resemblance. "Catherine, we need to talk about..." He stopped short at the sight of Lucy. Something dark and dangerous flashed across his face, before he masked it with a smile. "Well, this is unexpected. Lucy Parker, right? From Williams Foundation." "Hello, Mr. Morgan," Lucy replied coolly. "Funny running into you here." Andrew's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Catherine is an old family friend. I check in on her regularly, but I'm curious what brings you to her doorstep." Catherine moved to stand between them, visibly anxious. "Andrew, there's been a misunderstanding. Lucy thinks I might be her biological mother." Andrew laughed, but Lucy caught the tension in his shoulders. "That's ridiculous. Catherine has never had children." "That she remembers," Lucy challenged. "Tell me, Mr. Morgan, why did you visit the hospital where Emily Roberts was treated for traumatic amnesia 25 years ago? And why have you been ensuring she stays isolated here ever since?" Andrew's facade cracked slightly. "Catherine, this woman is clearly unstable. She's been listening to William's paranoid theories." "William is in a coma," Lucy said sharply, "after his car's brakes mysteriously failed on a dangerous road. Right after he discovered the truth about you," Catherine gasped. "William is hurt. Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded of Andrew. "It's not serious," Andrew dismissed. "And it has nothing to do with us." "It has everything to do with us," Lucy insisted, pulling out the DNA reports from the file. "These preliminary comparisons suggest I'm William and Emily's biological daughter, the daughter you helped separate from her parents." Catherine sank into a chair, eyes fixed on the documents. "This can't be true." "Ask him," Lucy urged. "Ask him about the days after your accident. Ask him who arranged your new identity. Ask him why he's been monitoring you for 25 years. Andrew's expression hardened. "That's enough." He moved toward Lucy with menace, but Catherine stepped between them. "Tell me the truth, Andrew," she demanded. "Was I pregnant when I had that accident?" For a moment, Lucy thought he might continue lying. Then something in him seemed to break. "You were better off without him," Andrew said, his voice suddenly raw. "Without the Morgan legacy and all its poison, I saved you. By lying to me, by taking my child." Catherine's voice rose in disbelief. "I never took your child," Andrew protested. "You gave her up yourself. You were the one who decided adoption was safer." Lucy felt the room tilt around her. "So it is true," she whispered. "I am your daughter." Catherine turned to her, eyes filling with tears of confusion and horror. "I don't remember." "Why don't I remember my own child?" "Because he made sure you wouldn't," came a new voice from the doorway. All three turned to see Mrs. Jenkins standing there, surprisingly steady for a woman her age who had clearly traveled across the country at a moment's notice. "I should have known you'd interfere again, you meddling old woman," Andrew snarled. Mrs. Jenkins stepped fully into the room, her dignity undimmed by Andrew's hostility. From her purse, she withdrew a packet of yellowed envelopes bound with faded ribbon. "I kept every letter William wrote to you after you disappeared, Emily," she said, using the name from the past. "Letters Andrew made sure you never received, and these," she produced a second, smaller bundle, "are the letters you wrote to William while in the hospital, which Andrew intercepted." Catherine reached for the letters with trembling hands. "My writing," she whispered, recognizing her own penmanship on the envelopes. Andrew lunged for Mrs. Jenkins, but Lucy blocked his path. "Touch her, and I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison," she warned. As Catherine began reading the first letter from William, dated 25 years earlier, her face transformed with dawning recognition. "I remember," she said softly, then louder. "I remember William and I were going to meet at the train station. We were running away together because his father disapproved." She looked at Andrew with growing horror. "You offered to drive me there, but you took a different road. You were angry, shouting about William not deserving me then. Nothing, just darkness, until I woke up in the hospital." Andrew's composure collapsed entirely. "He would have ruined your life," he shouted. "Turned you into another Morgan trophy. I loved you, Emily. I've always loved you." "So you caused her accident," Lucy said, the final piece falling into place. "And when she survived with amnesia, you saw your opportunity." "I never meant for her to get hurt," Andrew insisted, his voice breaking. "It was just supposed to scare her, make her see reason. When she hit her head, I panicked, but then I realized I could give her a fresh start, away from William's world. By stealing her child, My child, Catherine said, rising to her feet with newfound strength. By feeding me lies for 25 years, by keeping me dependent on you. Andrew backed toward the door, his eyes wild. You've never understood. Everything I did was for love. No, Catherine replied firmly. It was for obsession, and it ends today. Andrew's face contorted with a mixture of rage and desperation. You can't just throw away 25 years, he said to Catherine. Everything I've done for you. You did it for yourself, Catherine replied, her voice gaining strength with each passing moment as memories began to resurface. You stole my life, my choices. Lucy moved protectively toward her newly discovered mother, phone in hand. I've already called the local police. They're on their way. Andrew's eyes darted between the three women, calculating. No one will believe you. It's your word against mine. A Morgan, a pillar of society. And what about these? Mrs. Jenkins held up the intercepted letters. Or the hospital records showing your visits during Emily's amnesia. Or the financial trail of your payoffs to keep her isolated all these years. For a moment, it seemed Andrew might lunge for the letters, but the distant wail of police sirens gave him pause. This isn't over, he hissed, before bolting out the door. Through the window, they watched him sprint to his rental car and speed away. Gravel spraying from his tires, Catherine sank onto the sofa, letters clutched to her chest. All these years, living someone else's life, someone he created for me. She looked up at Lucy with tear-filled eyes. My daughter, my baby girl. Lucy sat beside her, her own emotions a storm of confusion, anger and tentative hope. I don't understand. The woman who raised me, Mary Parker. She was you, but you don't remember being her. Mrs. Jenkins settled into a chair across from them. Perhaps I can help explain. After the accident, Emily, or Catherine as she became, suffered from dissociative amnesia. Her memories of William and her pregnancy were blocked, but her maternal instincts remained. When I helped arrange the adoption, Emily was the one who came forward to adopt her own daughter, though she didn't consciously remember giving birth. She created a new identity as Mary Parker, with Andrew's help. Catherine nodded slowly, fragments of memory clicking into place. I remember feeling this overwhelming connection when I saw you. They told me it was just maternal instinct, that I'd make a good mother. She looked at Lucy in wonder. But it was more than that. It was recognition, wasn't it? My heart knew you, even when my mind didn't. But why did you change identities again? Lucy asked. Why become Catherine Wilson after raising me as Mary Parker? A shadow crossed Catherine's face. 3 years ago, I started having flashbacks. Dreams of another life, of a man I loved. It terrified Andrew. He convinced me I needed a fresh start, that moving to California would help with what he called my episodes. He staged Mary Parker's death, Mrs. Jenkins revealed. A car accident, much like the one he arranged for William yesterday. Emily became Catherine Wilson, supposedly Mary's distant cousin, who moved away to start over. Lucy struggled to process the layers of deception. And I grieve for you. I mourned a death that never happened. I'm so sorry, Catherine whispered, reaching hesitantly for Lucy's hand. If I had remembered, if I had known. The police arrived moments later, their questions adding another layer of complexity to an already overwhelming day. By the time statements had been taken, and the officers left with promises to locate Andrew, evening had fallen. Mrs. Jenkins prepared tea in Catherine's kitchen, giving mother and daughter a moment alone. I have a daughter, Lucy said suddenly, watching Catherine's expression carefully. Your granddaughter, Olivia. She's 6. Catherine's eyes widened. A granddaughter, is she here with you? No, she just had heart surgery in New York. She's doing well, but... Lucy hesitated. She's the reason William discovered our connection. He was helping with her medical care when he recognized your photograph in my apartment. William? Catherine said his name softly, running her fingers over the letters in her lap. All these years, I've had dreams about a man whose face I couldn't quite see, but I always woke up feeling safe, loved. She looked up with tears in her eyes. That was him, wasn't it? Lucy nodded. He never stopped loving you. When he realized who I might be, he hired investigators to find you. And now he's injured because of it, Catherine said, her voice breaking. Because of Andrew's obsession. Lucy's phone rang. The hospital in New York. She answered quickly, listening with increasing concern. I understand. We'll be there as soon as possible. What is it? Catherine asked when Lucy hung up. William's condition has deteriorated. They're not sure if... Lucy couldn't finish the sentence. We need to go back to New York now. I'll come with you, Catherine said without hesitation. Rising to her feet, Mrs. Jenkins reappeared from the kitchen. I've already arranged for the Foundation's jet to be ready within the hour. As Catherine quickly packed a small bag, Lucy stepped onto the deck overlooking the ocean. The sun was setting, casting golden light across the waves. Just 24 hours ago, her world had made sense. Now, everything she thought she knew about herself had been upended. She heard the sliding door open as Catherine joined her. It's beautiful here, Lucy said. I can see why you stayed. It was peaceful, Catherine agreed. But I think I always knew something was missing. Someone was missing. She turned to Lucy. I have so many questions about your life, about who you've become. I have questions too, Lucy admitted, about who you really are. Not Mary Parker or Catherine Wilson, but Emily Roberts, the woman who fell in love with William Morgan. Catherine smiled sadly. I'm still discovering that myself, but I'd like us to find out together. The drive to the airport was quiet, each woman lost in her thoughts. On the plane, Mrs. Jenkins discreetly moved to a seat far from the others, giving them privacy. Tell me about Olivia, Catherine requested once they were airborne. Lucy smiled, pulling out her phone to show photographs. She's brave and stubborn and too smart for her own good sometimes. She was born with a heart defect, a hole between chambers that never closed properly. Like my brother, Catherine said suddenly, then looked surprised at her own words. I had a brother who died young from a heart condition. I'd almost forgotten. It can be hereditary, Lucy said. That's why the doctors asked about family medical history. I couldn't tell them anything useful then. And William helped with her treatment, Catherine asked. Studying the photos of the little girl who shared her eyes, Lucy nodded. Without his intervention, she might still be on waiting lists. He arranged for the best specialist, covered all the costs. She paused. I thought it was just philanthropy. I had no idea he might be her grandfather. That sounds like the William I'm beginning to remember, Catherine said softly. Generous, decisive when it matters. The jet's satellite phone rang. Mrs. Jenkins answered, then approached them with a grave expression. That was the hospital. Richard Morgan has suffered a second stroke after learning of Andrew's actions and William's condition. He's asking to see all of you. Richard, William's father. Catherine's face hardened. He was part of this. He helped separate us. Yes, Mrs. Jenkins acknowledged. But he's dying, and he's asking for a chance to make amends. Lucy looked between the two women, sensing decades of complicated history. What did Richard Morgan do exactly? He threatened to disown William if he continued his relationship with me, Catherine explained. Memories continuing to surface. I was just the housekeeper's daughter, not suitable for his heir. When he discovered I was pregnant, he was furious. But it was Andrew who took that disapproval and twisted it into something monstrous, Mrs. Jenkins added. Richard never knew the full extent of his younger son's actions until yesterday, when William confronted him. The plane began its descent into New York airspace. Below them, the city lights sparkled in the darkness, a constellation of lives interconnected in ways visible only from above. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, Catherine confessed. Seeing William again after all these years. Confronting Richard. And what if William doesn't? He'll pull through, Lucy said with fierce conviction. He's fought too long to find us to give up now. As the wheels touched down on the tarmac, Lucy reached for Catherine's hand. Whatever happens, we face it together. That's what families do. Right, Catherine squeezed her daughter's hand, a lifetime of lost moments hanging between them. Together, she agreed. Manhattan Memorial's corridors felt longer at night, the hushed voices and dimmed lights creating a suspended reality where time seemed to stretch endlessly. Lucy led the way to William's room, Catherine following with tentative steps, her heart pounding against her ribs. He's been moved out of intensive care, the night nurse explained, still unconscious, but showing improved brain activity. The doctor is cautiously optimistic. Outside William's door, Catherine hesitated. I'm not sure I can do this, she whispered. "You've waited 25 years," Lucy reminded her gently. "He's waited just as long." Inside, William lay still among the machines monitoring his vital signs. The harsh fluorescent light emphasized the gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes, physical markers of the years they'd lost. Catherine approached slowly, as if in a dream. "William," she said softly, reaching for his hand. At her touch, the monitors registered a slight change, a quickening of his heart rate, perhaps a response to her voice or her touch, or merely coincidence. "He knows you're here," Lucy said, watching from the doorway. Catherine sat beside the bed, her fingers interlacing with William's. "I remember you," she whispered. "Not everything, not yet, but pieces are coming back. How you smiled, how you held me, the plans we made." Mrs. Jenkins appeared at Lucy's side. "Richard Morgan is asking for you both. His doctors say he doesn't have much time." Catherine's expression hardened. "Let him wait. I understand your anger," Mrs. Jenkins said, but William confronted him before the accident. "Richard knows everything now, and he's changed by it." Lucy touched her mother's shoulder. "We should go for closure, if nothing else." Catherine looked down at William's unconscious form. "I'll be back," she promised him. "We have too much unfinished to leave it this way." The Morgan estate felt like a mausoleum in the pre-dawn hours, the grand architecture oppressive rather than impressive. A night nurse led them to Richard's room, where medical equipment had transformed the stately bedroom into a makeshift hospital ward. Richard Morgan's once commanding presence had been reduced to a frail figure propped against pillows. His right side remained paralyzed from his first stroke, and the second had further diminished him, yet his eyes remained alert, intense as they fixed on Catherine and Lucy. "Emily," he said, his voice a shadow of its former authority. "And the girl, Lucy." His gaze lingered on Lucy's face. "You have her eyes, and William's chin." "Mr. Morgan," Catherine acknowledged coldly. "You remember now?" he asked. "Enough," she replied. "Enough to know your role in separating us." Richard closed his eyes briefly. "I thought I was protecting my son. The Morgan legacy. It seemed so important then." He looked at Lucy. "I never knew about you. Not until William told me." "Would it have made a difference?" Lucy asked. "I'd like to think so," Richard answered, but doubt shadowed his voice. "I opposed their relationship. I threatened to disinherit William if he chose Emily. But I never," his voice broke, "I never sanctioned what Andrew did. The accident, the deception, taking William's child. Yet you benefited from it," Catherine said sharply. "William remained in the company, building your empire." "Yes," Richard admitted, "and I've had years to regret the cost." He shifted painfully in his bed. "I was a hard man, ambitious, ruthless in business, and I see now, equally ruthless with my family." He looked again at Lucy. "But I never knew I had a granddaughter, or a great-granddaughter." Lucy stiffened in surprise. "You know about Olivia. William told me before the accident." A tear slipped down Richard's withered cheek. "My great-granddaughter has a heart condition. Morgan money helped her, but she'll never know me." "She might," Lucy said, surprising herself with the words, "if you truly want to make amends." Richard's expression transformed with fragile hope. "You would allow that?" "I don't know yet," Lucy answered honestly. "But I believe in second chances, and Olivia deserves to know her family. All of her family." Richard nodded, then looked toward Catherine. "I've changed my will. The bulk of my estate will still go to William. But I've established a trust for Lucy and Olivia and a foundation in Lucy's name for children with heart conditions." Catherine's bitterness softened slightly. "A gesture, after all these years." "A beginning," Richard corrected. "I can't undo the past, but perhaps I can help shape a better future." He closed his eyes, exhaustion evident. "There's one more thing you should know about Andrew." "What about him?" Lucy asked. "The police found him at his apartment," Richard said. "He tried to hurt himself. He left a letter, confessing everything." The news landed like a physical blow. Despite everything Andrew had done, the thought of him attempting suicide was sobering. "Will he survive?" Catherine asked, her voice conflicted. "Yes, but he'll face charges for William's accident." "Your accident years ago. Fraud and more." Richard's breathing grew labored. He was always troubled. I failed him too, in different ways. A nurse appeared at the doorway. "Mr. Morgan needs to rest now." As they turned to leave, Richard called out, "Emily, Catherine, whatever name you choose now, William never stopped loving you, even when he thought you were gone forever." Catherine paused at the door. "I know," she said softly. "Some part of me always knew. Back at the hospital, they found William's condition unchanged. The doctor explained that recovery from his injuries would be a slow process, with no guarantees. All we can do now is wait," he concluded. Catherine took up her position beside William's bed. "I'll stay with him," she insisted. "You should go check on Olivia." Lucy hesitated, torn between her daughter and her newly discovered parents. "I'll bring Olivia here when she's discharged tomorrow. She should meet her grandmother." The word hung between them. Grandmother. Another thread in the complex tapestry they were just beginning to weave. After Lucy left, Catherine carefully slid William's unresponsive hand into hers. "I have so much to tell you," she whispered. "About the years we lost. About our daughter. About us." Mrs. Jenkins watched from the doorway, her lined face reflecting decades of secrets kept and now revealed. "He can hear you," she said with quiet certainty. "Keep talking to him." Through the night, Catherine spoke softly to William, sharing fragments of memories as they returned. Their first meeting when she worked in his family's home. Secret notes passed when Richard wasn't looking. Dreams shared under starlight in the estate's gardens. "I remember you promised to take me to Paris," she said, smiling through tears, "to show me the lights from the Eiffel Tower. We never made it there, did we?" In the early morning hours, as sunlight began filtering through the window blinds, William's fingers twitched against hers. His eyelids fluttered, then slowly opened. "Emily." His voice was hoarse, barely audible. "William," she breathed, tears spilling freely now. "I'm here." Confusion crossed his face as he struggled to focus. "Am I dreaming?" "No," she assured him, squeezing his hand. "I'm real. I remember. Not everything, but enough. Lucy found me." "Lucy," he repeated. "Our daughter." "Yes." Catherine smiled through her tears. "She knows. We all know now." William attempted to sit up, wincing with pain. "Andrew is in custody." Catherine gently pressed him back against the pillows. "It's over, William. After 25 years, all the lies are finally falling apart." William's eyes, though clouded with medication, held the same intensity she remembered from years ago. "I never stopped looking for you," he said. "Even when everyone told me to move on, to accept you were gone. And I never stopped feeling something was missing," she replied. "Even when I couldn't remember what, or who it was." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Lucy stood there, her expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I heard he's awake," she said. William's gaze shifted to her, his eyes filling with tears. "Lucy." She approached the bed hesitantly. "I'm still processing all of this," she admitted. "Finding out the mother I thought I'd lost isn't really gone. Discovering my biological father. It's a lot to take in. For all of us." William agreed weakly. An awkward silence settled over the room. Three people connected by blood but separated by decades of lies and manipulation, struggling to find their way toward each other. "Olivia keeps asking when she can meet her grandpa," Lucy finally said. "She's being discharged this afternoon." William's face lit up despite his pain. "I'd like that very much." For the first time, Catherine truly looked at William, not through the haze of returning memories or the shock of revelation, but as the man he had become, gray hair at his temples, lines of determination around his mouth, eyes that had seen both triumph and heartache. A stranger, yet somehow familiar in the ways that mattered most. "We have so much to learn about each other," she said quietly. 25 years of lives lived apart, and hopefully many more years to discover each other again, William replied, his hand finding hers once more. 3 months passed like a stream finding its course after a storm, sometimes rushing forward, sometimes pooling in quiet eddies of adjustment and healing. Autumn settled over New York, painting Central Park in fiery hues visible from William's penthouse windows. Mrs. Jenkins watched the transformation of the household with quiet satisfaction. William had recovered enough to walk with a cane, his physical therapy progressing steadily. Catherine, who had decided to keep that name as a bridge between her past and present, had moved into the guest suite, a careful distance maintained as they rediscovered each other. Lucy and Olivia visited often, spending weekends in the large apartment that was slowly becoming warmer, more lived in with each visit. Today, however, was different. The apartment was silent. The family gathered instead at Greenwood Cemetery for Mrs. Jenkins's funeral. Her passing had been peaceful, in her sleep. 1 week after Richard Morgan's own funeral, at 97, she had lived to see the family she had helped fracture finally begin to heal. Her last words to William had been, "My conscience can rest now." The graveside service was small but dignified. William stood supported by his cane, Catherine beside him but not touching. Lucy held Olivia's hand, the little girl solemn in her first experience with death, clutching a single white rose nearly as long as her arm. Mrs. Jenkins served the Morgan family for over 70 years, the minister intoned. Her loyalty, discretion, and wisdom guided generations through both triumph and tragedy. William thought of how inadequate those words were. Mrs. Jenkins had been more than a servant. She had been confidant, co-conspirator, and ultimately, the architect of their reunion. "She kept my letters," Catherine whispered, as if reading his thoughts. "All those years, when she could have destroyed them. She never gave up hope that someday the truth would emerge." When the minister finished, Olivia stepped forward to place her rose on the polished casket. "Goodbye, Mrs. J," she said clearly. "Thank you for helping find my grandma and grandpa." The simple sincerity of a child's farewell brought tears to every adult's eyes. As the small gathering dispersed, William, Catherine, Lucy, and Olivia remained, somehow understanding that this moment marked a transition. Mrs. Jenkins had been their last link to the past, the only person who had witnessed their entire story from beginning to present. "She arranged our meeting at Bella's restaurant," William said, breaking the silence. "She recognized Lucy from my phone and engineered the whole thing." Lucy smiled sadly. "She told me she'd been planning it for years, waiting for the right moment." "What do we do now?" Catherine asked. The question encompassed more than just their immediate plans. "Now," William said, offering his free arm to her while keeping his cane steady. "We go home, together." They stopped at another grave before leaving the cemetery, Mary Emily Parker's. The headstone marked a burial plot that contained no body, part of Andrew's elaborate deception to transform Emily Roberts into Catherine Wilson. "It feels strange," Catherine said, staring at her own name engraved in marble, mourning a version of myself that never really existed. "She existed to me," Lucy said quietly. "She raised me, loved me, even if the circumstances were built on lies. That love was real." Catherine touched the cold stone. "I remember bits and pieces now. Birthday parties, school events, nursing you through chicken pox. But it's like watching scenes from someone else's life, played by me. The doctors say more memories might return with time," William reminded her gently. "And if they don't," Catherine looked at him with vulnerability, "what if I never fully remember being the mother who raised Lucy? Then we create new memories," Lucy said firmly. "All of us, together." Olivia, who had been exploring nearby headstones with a child's curious reverence, returned to take her mother's hand. "Can we go home now? I'm hungry." The simple request broke the somber mood, bringing smiles to their faces. "Yes, sweetheart," Lucy replied. "Let's go home." As they walked back toward the waiting car, William and Catherine fell slightly behind. "I never properly thanked you," Catherine said softly. "For what?" "For not giving up. For looking for me even when it seemed hopeless." William's steps slowed. "I tried to move on. I even married someone else, though it didn't last. Because you couldn't forget me." There was no vanity in her question, only a need to understand. "Because I couldn't forget us," he corrected. "What we had, what we planned, it was the future I mourned as much as the past." Catherine nodded, understanding. "I feel that too, mourning not just what was taken, but what might have been." Ahead of them, Olivia skipped beside her mother, her recent surgery leaving no visible traces on her energetic 6-year-old body. Her successful recovery seemed symbolic somehow, a heart that once had holes now made whole. Back at the penthouse, they shared a quiet dinner prepared by the new housekeeper William had hired. after Mrs. Jenkins became too frail for daily duties. The conversation flowed more naturally now than in the early weeks after their reunion, less weighted with expectation and awkwardness. "I've been thinking," Lucy said as they finished dessert, "about officially changing Olivia's last name to Morgan Parker. What do you think?" William looked surprised. "Are you considering changing your name too?" Lucy shook her head. "Parker is who I've always been, but Olivia deserves to carry both families forward." "I'd be honored," William said, emotion evident in his voice, "and the foundation Richard established. Have you given any thought to his offer to name it after you? The Lucy Parker Heart Foundation does have a nice ring to it," Catherine mused. "Actually," Lucy smiled, "I was thinking we might call it the Jenkins Foundation, in her memory." William nodded appreciatively. She would have pretended to be scandalized while secretly being pleased. After dinner, while Catherine helped Olivia with her bath, William and Lucy sat in the living room, looking out at the city lights. "Andrew's sentencing is next week," William said quietly. Lucy tensed slightly. "Have you decided whether to attend?" "I don't know," William admitted. "Part of me wants to see justice done. Another part just wants to close that chapter completely." "Catherine seems conflicted about it too," Lucy observed. "She spent so many years believing he was her friend and protector. The psychiatrists say his obsession with her became his entire identity," William explained. "In his mind, he was saving her from a life he couldn't imagine she would choose willingly. It doesn't excuse what he did." "No," William agreed solemnly, "but understanding might help us all move forward." After a moment of silence, Lucy asked the question that had hovered unspoken between them. "What about you and Catherine? Where do you stand?" William considered carefully before answering. "We're finding our way. The people we fell in love with 25 years ago don't exist anymore. We've both changed, but there's still something there, a foundation to build on, if we choose to." "I think she wants to," Lucy said. "She's just afraid of disappointing you, of not being the Emily you remember." "I don't expect her to be," William assured her. "I just want the chance to know who she is now." Their conversation was interrupted by Olivia bounding into the room in pajamas, her wet hair combed neatly. "Mom, Grandma says tomorrow we can go to the park to feed the ducks." Catherine followed, smiling apologetically. "If that's okay with everyone, a perfect plan," William agreed. Later, as Lucy and Olivia prepared to leave for their apartment, they still maintained separate residences despite William's standing invitation to move in. Olivia hugged her grandfather tightly. "Grandpa, Mommy says we're going home." "But isn't this home too?" The innocent question hung in the air, laden with meaning for the adults. "Home is wherever the people you love are gathered," William answered, looking over her head at Catherine and Lucy. "So yes, this is one of your homes. Always." As Catherine walked them to the door, Olivia took both her mother's and grandmother's hands. "Grandma, Mommy, Grandpa, we're going home," she announced, unconsciously echoing the scene William had imagined countless times during his search. After they left, William and Catherine stood in companionable silence at the window, watching the lights of the city. "The time may have stolen our past," William said softly, "but it doesn't have to take our future." Catherine turned to him, her eyes reflecting both hesitation and hope. "The destiny separated us, but also brought us back together. Perhaps it's not coincidence that your guardian called herself Emily," William said, taking her hand carefully in his, "because hope was the only thing I never completely lost." In that moment, standing together against the backdrop of the city that had witnessed both their separation and reunion, the circle that had been broken 25 years ago began, finally, to close.